We're going. And we're live.
And we're live.
And we're live. We are live with Michelle Kupfer.
Hello, Nancy. And hello, wool walkers.
Knitwear designer extraordinaire.
Thank you.
In her home office where it all happens. I wanted to introduce Wool Walkers to Northern New Jersey's in-house designer and knitwear designer. I have a bunch of her patterns in the store. Well, one I'm looking at now, one I have to reknit, a couple we have to reknit. And I was hoping that Michelle would talk about, Michelle Kupfer designs her own design business.
Well, thank you, Nancy. It's nice to be here and thanks for having me. Truly, I'm excited to be a part of the Wool Walk this year. I've always, when I had been working at local stores, I've loved the Wool Walk weekends because it was so fun to meet people that would come from other parts of the state. And I loved hearing about their local stores, what they liked and why. Yes, as you say, I am a knitwear designer. I have been writing knitting patterns. I'm going to say for about, I think I started writing patterns in about 2014, although don't quote me. And I began writing patterns because I was primarily teaching knitting classes. I had been teaching knitting classes for about 15 years.
Yeah, that's your real.
That was my passion. That was what I loved doing, and I've been doing it for a long time. And I have been blessed with some of the best knitting students ever, who have, some have passed through for 1 or 2 sessions. Some have been with me for 10 plus years. Some come and go depending on what's going on in their life, as they go through different segments of their life and they have more availability, they pop into class for a while. So I've always loved teaching. And oftentimes I would find that students would come to class with patterns that were needlessly complicated and frustrating for them. And frankly, for me to try to figure out what the pattern was telling them to do in the setting of a group class. So oftentimes I would take a pattern and I would go home with it and I would read through it and make notes. And I thought it shouldn't be so difficult for somebody to knit whatever it was. So I started writing patterns at that point. And
patterns, what patterns are you best known for? Because I'm going to say, I feel like the patterns that you really that are known for in my shop are baby items, small or blankets or advanced beginner type.
And that's exactly it. I would say all of the above. I do a lot of baby garments because that's what people are looking for.
Let's see some. Can we see some while you're talking?
We can. Actually, I don't have a lot of baby garments. I have primarily blankets and things. Okay, terrific.
I have one right here. Hold on, I'm coming to get it. This is the beauty of local Zoom. This is one of our favorite patterns. This is, you go first.
Okay, so this is my my cozy little boat neck pullover.
Closer to this camera. I can't really.
Camera.
Oh, so cute.
So it has a garter stitch bottom edge, a little vented edge with a little garter stitch trim. The garter stitch bodice, it's a really easy pattern for beginners. No shaping on the body, minimal shaping on the sleeves. This is
over the head.
Popular. Over the head, nice wide opening. So this is called the Cozy Little Boat Neck Pullover. It is, there are 4 sizes, this being the smallest, kind of a 12-month size. But wait. It was so popular that I was pressured by some of my students to make an adult version.
Now keep going closer to the camera because you can really see the stitch.
Okay, so this is the same exact design, but in adult sizes.
Is that worsted weight?
Worsted weight. Any worsted weight will do. One of the things, well, I love the details on this. I love the vented bottom edge, which I think you can see. What I did with this design though was, again, as I'm designing, I'm always hearing my students in my head. And one of the things that
you're in real life, hearing your students in real life.
One of their concerns is always picking up stitches. So what I did was I created the armhole edge along a garter stitch. Those stitches are picked up along the garter stitch body. And of course, when you're picking stitches up in garter stitch, it's much easier because you've got your ridges and rows that act as sort of a guide. So that is the adult and kid size cozy little boat neck pullover. What have you got?
What I have, dun, 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 dun. Can you see it?
Yes. Yes. So
It
that's
is
my
baby / toddler cardigan with garter stitch edges. So it's a, you know, it's a little, it could be, it's gender neutral. It's a V neck. We picked up stitches not on a garter stitch and we have a little garter stitch. It's done in pieces. There's a little seaming, not a big deal.
That is a great starter sweater. There really is minimal shaping on that. And when I write my patterns, I always include clear instructions for both right front shaping and left front shaping, because I feel like it's not fair to the knitter to say, okay, do what you did before, but reverse it. That's too hard. So I always spell everything out very clearly.
So also, so you do all different weights. You don't really do fingering stuff as much, but that's okay.
Yeah. No,
not
I don't do much with fingering weight yarn. Because I guess twofold. One is it takes much longer to knit. And secondly, again, because I kind of designed with my students in mind, they weren't real big on fingering weight. Although I happen to have.
Oh, the hat.
So this is Crazy Colors Reversible Hat, which is fingering weight yarn. It's a lot of knitting, but it was repetitive and therapeutic.
It's really great.
This is kind of fun. It is knit kind of like a football. So the way it's constructed with two contrasting fingering weight yarns is you just knit one hat starting here, work it from the bottom to the top, flip it over, pick stitches up along the bottom edge, and knit the second hat that just gets tucked inside of the first one.
Super warm, a lot of knitting.
Yeah.
TV knitting though.
Netflix knitting.
There you go.
So that is fingering weight, since you asked. There's also a DK or worsted weight version of the same hat. So kind of whatever yarn you have on hand is a good yarn to use for this hat. It's called the Crazy Colors Reversible.
That could be Stash Buster.
Absolutely. You could do stripes. The nice thing is, because it's all enclosed, you probably don't tell anyone, but you probably wouldn't really have to weave your ends in too well, because everything is inside the hat. There's no
I'm not telling.
wrong side.
I'm not telling. Hold on one second, because I gotta write this stuff down, because we're gonna put the links. We're gonna put the links in the chat as well. And of course, I should have had a paper, baby toddler. So I'm writing so that hat. Okay, great. So the double knit. That is very clever.
You know, and it's simple, it's forgiving. I mean, really, I think that's what I focus on when I'm designing patterns is simple knitting with impressive results.
Oh, I love that.
I kind of feel like life is stressful enough for people, in particular now, and their knitting shouldn't be. So I know that there are people who enjoy a super challenging knitting project. That's not me, and that hasn't been most of my students. I think most of us knit to relax, and I write my patterns with that in mind.
So you and I were talking before. I want you to hold up that baby blanket or a couple of baby blankets, because a lot of my knitters are looking for, but they're not looking for like a garter stitch baby blanket. They want to do something nice for either a gift or a grandchild or something. You see baby blanket?
Well, I happen to have a few baby blankets.
Figured you might.
Okay. Here's a new one, relatively new. These are, for the most part, these are post-pandemic blankets. And while this looks kind of complicated.
Is that mitered squares?
It is not mitered squares. It is actually a patchwork effect. So if you look at this top square that I have in the screen, the blanket actually starts, let's see if I can do this on camera without getting you dizzy. It starts with this white square, a garter stitch square, and then stitches are picked up on all four sides of that square.
Yeah.
Or triangles are knit in the contrasting color.
Okay.
Right? So then you have this one square from here.
I got, okay.
So it is 9 squares that are then joined together.
That is actually rather effective. Look at you.
It is pretty cool. It is really kind of based on a patchwork effect.
What's the name of the
And
pattern? Sorry to
it's
interrupt.
called Quiltish.
Quiltish. I like that. Quiltish.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
And then lastly, stitches are picked up around the perimeter, around the border, and just knit in garter stitch. So I'm a big fan of garter stitch. You'll find I do a lot of just garter stitch because I don't think garter stitch has to be boring.
I like garter stitch as a yarn store owner because your garter stitch does take more yarn.
Right.
So I do like that. And, you know,
Right.
well,
Why
that's
not?
what it is.
Okay, so that was Quiltish. This is another garter stitch, but interesting, I think. So this is called the one-piece patchwork blanket.
Okay.
And it is in fact knit in one piece in intarsia style. So for those not familiar with intarsia knitting, it means that you're knitting the entire row in one piece, and you're not carrying the yarn across the back, but at each point where you change colors, you're twisting the stitches to ensure that there's no hole being formed.
Nice little technique there.
Yeah, so this is really a spin-off of a blanket that I had done, a baby blanket I had done a while back called the 3-color patchwork baby blanket, which, much to my delight and surprise, has been my most popular, hands down, most popular blanket pattern.
You saved me that question off my little interview sheet.
What's interesting is
the
that pattern, the 3-color patchwork, has like been crazy, selling all over the country. So clearly, as you know, I'm no techie, but somebody somewhere, God bless them, must have posted that pattern on some popular link. And I sell patterns, you know, pretty frequently for that particular one.
You don't have a copy. You don't have a sample of that.
I don't have that blanket, but we can put a link up on.
I'll write it into the bibliography that's going to go along with this.
Okay.
The cable blanket that you showed me too.
Okay, so this is one of my newest patterns. This is called Cuddle Up with Cables. It is, yeah, I struggle with the names. Sometimes it's corny, but you know, it is what it is.
Does it make people remember the name of the pattern?
I hope so.
Yes, so there's your answer.
So this is a reversible ribbed cable blanket. Cables on both sides, no right or wrong side. I have to say, I totally loved knitting this. It was just, you know, 90% just ribbing, and at intervals, you're just doing either right or left twist cables in ribbing.
It's a nice little baby blanket. It's a nice gift.
Yeah, totally reversible, which is kind of unique as blankets go. So that is Cuddle Up with Cables. Okay.
We're just banging them out. Do you have, I want to see some of your adult sweaters. Or what you're reaching for that you want to show, because this is you.
So I'm looking at my my pile of blankets. I'll show you one more that I did since we're Northern New Jersey girls. Again, struggling with names. This one I called the Paramus Patchwork. For those of you who don't know, Paramus is a city in Northern New Jersey, known for its shopping, but it has many other fine qualities. This is a chunky weight patchwork blanket that is knit in panels. Each panel is a different, simple, textured square block.
Perfect.
How's that?
So you want to be like an advanced beginner, try some new stitches, see which one you like.
The nice thing about it is because you're only working on one panel at a time, don't quote me, but it's, you know, somewhere in the 30 stitches at a time range. So you're only working on a small piece, and it's a great way to challenge yourself and learn some new pattern stitches. Again, none of them are complicated. They're just knits and purls.
But we don't allow the word just in the store.
Oh, okay.
In here.
Okay.
It's not just knits and purls, because if you don't know how to knit, like the word just sort of
negates what we're talking about.
Only knits and purls.
Right. It is exclusively knits and purls.
The other part is, now this is my own, I'm going to interject here. The reason
I can stop you.
Thank you. The reason that you would pay for a pattern like that is because Michelle has done the math and written the instructions so that when you get it and it looks not really that hard, it's taken Michelle hours and hours and hours to make sure that the blocks are the same size. They might be different number of stitches, and that the instructions are printed appropriately and proofread a billion times and published properly. So this is why we pay for patterns, because it's not just coming out of the ether. It takes Michelle a lot of work. How many patterns have you written, Michelle?
First of all, I sincerely appreciate you mentioning that, because while the patterns may appear simple, a tremendous amount of work goes into, designing, writing, editing, everything that goes into that, posting them where they're
photography.
Right,
But
right.
the editing is really, if the numbers work out the first time and you can understand the pattern the first time, that's pretty much the whole shooting match. How many patterns? We have a lot of experience in this, don't we?
Well, I think as we speak, I have 137 patterns on Ravelry, which is really kind of shocking to me because I never really set out to be a designer. It just sort of evolved into that. But it makes me so proud and so happy. And for me, when a knitter says to me, your pattern made me feel empowered and independent, I could just cry. It just makes me so pleased, because I feel like it makes knitting available to people who have been frustrated by more difficult patterns than they need it to be,
And now this is a good segue. Where are your patterns available if not on Ravelry?
Well, the patterns are
Ravelry. If you're not on Ravelry, that's the website for pretty much most of stuff. But Michelle, take it away. Sorry.
So yeah, my patterns are on my store on Ravelry. It is Michelle Kupfer's Ravelry Stores, I believe is what it's called.
Kupfer.
Michelle, Kupfer, 2 L's in Michelle. And hot off the press, as of the time this is aired, my website will be live as well. So michellekupfer.com will be a second place that my patterns will be available for purchase. And that's michellekupfer.com.
Awesome.
About that.
Do you have a problem getting that name, that domain?
No, I put my daughter on it. What can I say? We were talking earlier, having a young adult with some tech savviness is a great thing.
Go figure. And the other thing we were talking about is your teaching, which was really how you got your start in Northern New Jersey. Right. And you have been teaching at all the most of the stores around here, all the stores, and in-person classes at independent venues, and everybody knows your name up here. Are you going to, once things subside, what are your plans for the in-person teaching or Zoom teaching?
That remains to be seen. Never say never. But since let me back up. As you said, I have been teaching at yarn stores, community schools, adult ed programs, occasionally at a library, probably since about 2000. So I have had a lot of students pass through my classes over time, and I have absolutely loved teaching. I feel like I'm learning as much as the students are, and I just, the challenges are what make us get better at what we do. Since the pandemic began, I was very fortunate. Well, sadly, classes came to a screeching halt. The beauty of my classes has always been in person. It was really the camaraderie, the socializing, the interaction in class. I am not personally a fan of teaching on Zoom. It just, for me personally, it's outside of my comfort level. I think something gets lost. However, there are people who are doing it and doing it beautifully. I applaud them.
We all need to know what our strengths and weaknesses are. It's not a weakness, but doesn't play to your in-person strengths. How's that?
Perfect. You make it sound very good. So right now, I don't have any teaching on the schedule in the future. I'm really kind of focusing right now more on my design work. and we'll see what the future brings. As I said, who knows what's down the road, but right now I don't have anything on the schedule for teaching.
It'll be in a little while. We are opening slowly, and I don't know how, as vaccinations improve up here, we will probably slowly open up classes at some point, but that's going to be slower than we would like, but
Yeah,
keeping everybody safe up here.
it's been hard. People miss that interaction. What I had done a few times in the fall and hope to do again as the weather gets and stays nicer, which will be any day now. I would send a call out to my knitters and we would get together at the park for a little bit of outdoor knitting on a nice day. So it was usually a sort of last minute thing based on weather forecasts, but it was just so good to see people and connect with them. And, despite the masks and limitations, that was, it was as good as it gets given the circumstances. So I certainly hope to do more of that, over the spring and summer months.
Awesome. And I think as the vaccines get more and more prevalent, and the risk dies down, that would be really great.
Yeah.
I would love to have I don't have an outdoor space, as everybody knows who's been to my store, but so I can't offer that, but I would love to. We'll promote that for you. Couple more minutes. Let's see some more patterns.
Okay. Well, this is kind of a fun one. This is called the Marconi Beach Poncho.
What is Marconi Beach?
Marconi Beach is, well, funny story. I usually go to Cape Cod every summer to spend some time with a dear friend of mine up there. And there is a yarn shop there called A Great Yarn. And a few years ago, they had hand-dyed yarns that were dyed specifically for the store. And the yarns were named for local landmarks. One of those landmarks is Marconi Beach, which is on the outer shore of Cape Cod, heading out toward Provincetown. And the particular color that I had gotten was Marconi Beach. And that was, although I didn't end up knitting the poncho in that yarn, this is Malabrigo Rios, the name stuck. One of the things that I kind of love about this poncho is that the pattern includes both a chunky and a worsted weight version.
Oh,
this is Barocco Ultra Alpaca Chunky.
Perfect.
Same design, but in a chunky weight. And it's just a nice little something. I'm kind of fond of these little ponchos. You can sort of, if you're putting a coat on, you can bring it all forward and it doesn't get in the way of your coat. But if not, it's just a nice little over the shoulder.
I like those eyelets. It makes it a much lighter. A, it's a lighter poncho, and B, uses less yarn.
Right.
Not win-win for me, but win-win for
good trick. If you have limited yarn, add some lace because it goes further.
There you go.
And then I think the last pattern that I'll show you, if I can, this is one that I love. This is called the Bella Facile Poncho. It is a chunky weight, cables, and moss stitch. I'm going to throw it on because I love it. It is, you can make the collar longer, shorter. We had talked earlier about the fact that I do design a lot of blankets because people love knitting blankets. This is really knit almost like two blankets. The back is just a rectangle. The front is the same pattern, a rectangle, just, I believe, don't quote me, but I think it's just 12 rows that I have spelled out very clearly of neck shaping.
Perfect.
And then we're joined at the shoulders and stitches are picked up for the collar that you can make as long or short as you like. So this is the Bella Facile cabled poncho. That's all I got at the moment.
That's a lot. That's a lot. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's been like a half an hour and we've gotten through 10% of your pattern inventory.
There you go. I don't want to bore anybody with more than that.
People will find you from this. That's the whole thing. It's beauty.
Well, I hope so. And I really hope that people enjoy the wool walk. I know it's going to be a little different this year than it has been in the past. But we knitters are pretty resilient. And look, I think we are fortunate to be knitters and to have this hobby to have passed the time this past year. I mean, I am thankful every day for that. So yeah. I think it keeps us sane, happy.
It's a relative term in this time.
It is.
We know that.
Well, it's been great visiting with you.
Michelle, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Nancy.
We usually see each other in person, so this was just to share a little of the blah, 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 blah.
Well, it has been delightful, and I hope to see you over the wool walk, if not sooner, and I hope to run into some wool walkers during the course of that week.
I hope we'll see you. Okay, I'll talk to you right after the meeting.
Okay, great. Thanks. Bye-bye.